You know, we love talking college football with all of you here each and every day at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by, whether it's on Facebook, on X, or right here on YouTube, where we prefer it. We got to say, we love you folks that are following us on Facebook and on Twitter/X. But this is the place to be because you can dive in the live chat, of course, and you can mix it up with people like Tukey G and with Todd and all sorts of good people here watching the Voice of College Football every day. This is the College Football Show. It seemed pretty apropos to me to name it the College Football Show. And here we are, Monday through Friday. And again, this is a 30th show. So we just got this started about 6 weeks ago, and hopefully the momentum builds. Appreciate you being here. Let people know that we're here talking college football with you every day. You reach people on social media that we don't. Can you imagine a life without knowing the Voice of College Football? Just imagine it. Spare and save some people out there from such a fate. All right, we'll get to the comments and questions there in the live chat. And also we will leave the call-in line as we already have, in fact. So give me a call. We do have a guest coming on, Will Gunter from 107.5 The Game down there in Columbia, South Carolina, to talk about the Gamecocks. And knowing Will, he will want to talk about the entire SEC. Also want to look at some SEC schedules. I don't know whether I'm going to keep it to this live stream or it will encourage and inspire me to produce some videos looking at SEC schedules and possibly ranking them top to bottom. I want to in particular focus on the non-conference matchups because you've been watching me for any period of time. You know that I'm a bit miffed at the approach to college football, non-conference scheduling in particular. Also, the conference scheduling is pathetic across the nation. It is not equitable. But outside the conference is even worse because we have left these programs up to their own devices to schedule their own games, and it makes no sense. So we will look at the disparity and the differences in non-conference scheduling in the SEC if we get around to it. But unless you keep me company, and give me a call. Karen is here. No, she is not. She said that she can't be here today, just dropping by to say hello. What could be more important than the Voice of College Football? Oh, my goodness. Todd says, love the thumbnail with the mighty Gamecocks. Indeed. Tukey G is here. Yes, Tukey G getting a lot of play here in recent weeks, but you, in fact, could be the new and next version Tukey G. Why do I say that? Well, of course, we gave Tukey G the honor of naming the time and the day of our first late night call-in show that's coming up. Seems like I've been talking about this forever because we wanted to get past March Madness. And then Tukey G put it on a Friday, so it's at the end of the week. So it's going to be a while here. Let's see, it's going to be, I guess, just 1 week from Friday. So I will be here at 11 p.m. Eastern time to take your calls on Friday, April 11th. And then whether we do it every Sunday, that's what I've announced. But now that I think about it, we should probably make it a part of the call-in show that we select somebody, or maybe take a poll to determine when the next late night call-in show is going to be. Okay, maybe we'll do that. But the first one, let's get through the first one first. Although I have done a few thousand of these. Let's get through the first one first. That would be on April 11th. That's a Friday night, 11 p.m. Eastern time. Tukey G just figured, Mark, he's got nothing to do on a Friday night. Let's throw it on a Friday night. Let's go. Timothy's here. Uh-oh, Karen. Karen, double dipping here. I was doing that a bit earlier where I was trying to focus on other work outside the Voice of College Football business. At the same time, I was doing things for the Voice of College Football, and I ended up not hearing anything or remembering anything from the other business venture. So I can't juggle like apparently Karen can. it takes all the focus that I have to just be able to concentrate on one thing at a time. Men are not multitaskers, right? Sounds like a party. You know, Minnie, I have to say, when you had me on your show a couple weeks ago, I didn't realize it, I don't believe, at the time of the show, because you don't get to see all the production elements that go into the show. But then I realized it when I don't think I didn't even watch the show that I was on. I was actually checking out other iterations of, forgive me if I'm not remembering it, Corn Nation. Man, they've got shows all over the place. They've got like a cast of thousands on there. I checked out about 5 shows. I kind of jumped around and looked at different shows, and but a very nice open. Very nice open. We've got to step up our game here at the Voice of College Football. We've only been at this for like 10 or 12 years. So give us some time. But we've got to up our game in the production value and maybe some music. When I saw the word party, that just led me right into, well, music. I don't have any music here. We did an early morning show that every so often somebody will ask me about starting up an early morning show. And it's funny because I started getting up early. I set a time, and I have been faithful now for about 3 weeks, every day, even Saturday and Sunday. But we did it as soon as I moved here. I thought it was going to be a good idea to do an early morning show. And if you want to check those out, we built a nice little graphic. It's a nice little sunny morning look. Do we even have this thing? I don't have it here available, but I got to admit, I was kind of proud of myself. And we put this together for a morning show. And I just thought, hey, we'll talk college football. We'll mix it up on some other stuff outside of college football. We ran into some fun topics about breakfast food. And I did the show in the kitchen. And we talk about what I was going to fix for breakfast that day. And it was a fun little show. But unfortunately, wasn't really worth it. So I let that go after about 5 or 6 weeks. Who goes out on a Friday anymore, honestly? Well, I did last Friday. I did. But hey, Tukey G, I'll sacrifice for you. No, I have plenty of Fridays I'm not doing anything. So I think they're called Gen Alpha. I can do an intro for you. Hey, that's an offer. That's an offer I can't refuse right there. All right. We're standing by for Will Gunter from 107.5 The Game in Columbia, South Carolina. In the meantime, we'll remind everyone that I've got a book. There it is, Disputed National Champions. Maybe I will mention this to Will and see what he thinks of it. Disputed National Champions. It's a historical reset of college football in the 1990s. It's not just a history book, but we take each season and we slice and dice it in terms of what happened in that particular year, but also the ramifications of that particular season. And we put that exact season, 1990, 91, 92, on through 99, into the BCS, the 4-team and the 12-team college football playoff, and also the proposed 14-team playoff. I think this kind of stuff is fun. The link's down in the description section down below. We had Will, right? Like I said, down below, and I went to click on Will, and he disappeared on me. So hopefully Will can make it on back. He disappeared on me. So hopefully no technical issues there. Or maybe we should be rooting for technical issues as opposed to Will deciding, I don't want to talk to Mark today. That could be it. Jackson showing up. Thank you for that, Jackson. And Dave's here. Yeah, never question Jackson. Never. The most consistent, the most rock solid, the one sure thing in all of college football online digital media is one Jackson Johnson. He is the one. We've got an Instagram, folks. And if you are on Instagram, I'm mighty proud of it. And I've done nothing to build it other than set up passwords. We have turned this over to our guys, Patrick and Gabe, and they're doing a heck of a job posting a couple times a day some interesting tidbits around college football. And we are going through a rankings of quarterbacks I see and some really good stuff there. All right, since we've got nobody to go to, and again, hopefully, let me check on Will here. Let me see if we're doing okay here with Will. All right. Guess we'll get into some SEC schedules. I didn't see anything in the news today that I really thought was that incredibly interesting. But why not? Let's check it out. There he is, Hunter, ladies and gentlemen.
Apologize. We had a computer issue here. I can't get volume. I wasn't able to hear you, so we had to make a change there on the on what we were trying to do, buddy. How you doing?
I am doing well. You couldn't hear me, and I was pumping you up.
Yeah. No, I apologize. I think that was something to do with my computer, so I will have to check on that tonight as I get ready for the show tomorrow.
Yeah, technology can be great most of the time.
That is
Most
correct.
of the time. Well, Will, it's good to see you.
Good to talk to you. Hadn't talked to you in a long time. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah. Same to you. And we want to hear about some South Carolina football. And we know that you love to talk national college football and the SEC in particular, but we'll start close to home because you talk about the Gamecocks just about every day. I know that the baseball team's been a disappointment, and the basketball team was off the radar from about day one for the most part. So we'll dive right into the football. And you've got yourself a Heisman candidate for the first time in a long, long time.
Yeah, what I guess I hadn't thought about it. You present that question. I guess Jadavian Clowney actually was a Heisman candidate in what 2011. Is that about right?
That's who
2012,
came to mind when I said that, actually.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I label him a Heisman candidate. He's got a lot of work to do. But certainly had a great back half of 2014, and we'll see what Lenora Sellers can do. I want to see his development. We're kind of watching that with spring football that they've got going on right now, and how he performs. What relationship he develops with his wide receivers. I think that's really important for him because you're talking about basically a brand new wide receiving group that is going to come in, and a lot of unknowns. Mazio Bennett, Nick Harbor, a lot of freshmen. Jared Brown is back for another year. So, those are big things that make for him to be a Heisman candidate. Plus, throw in there, he's got a new offensive coordinator in Mike Shula.
Yeah. And so, how was that hire received by you and the fan base?
Um, I think there was a lot of people that thought there could have been an out of the box hire, but also Mike Shula was credited with a lot of the development of Lenora Sellers, and a lot of people also pointed out the fact that Mike Shula was instrumental in what Cam Newton did in his MVP season with the Carolina Panthers. So I think there was a lot of people who thought, okay, well, you've got this kind of quarterback. Look at what he's done in the past, and so therefore they were able to kind of accept it. I think once again, and I think a lot of fan bases are this way. When you have an opening coordinator position, you expect the hot new name, right? You expect to be able to go out and land whatever that name is. And South Carolina, I think fans thought that was what would happen. And you go with a guy who has learned, who has been on the staff, who understands Lenora Sellers, who is standing down on the sidelines eye to eye with him this past season. I think that's what's important.
Now, if we rewind to the last couple of weeks of last season, and then the way it played out with a win against Clemson and the college football playoff committee making the selections that they did. Of course, they went by record, on down the line, and that left out Ole Miss, Alabama, and South Carolina in the SEC. Was there a lot of angst? Was there a lot of anger? Was there whether that be from yourself? Did you think that the committee should have looked past the records per se and looked at, okay, this South Carolina team is on fire right now and playing as well as anyone?
Well, you're asking me. You're asking my opinion on that. My opinion is you take the 12 best teams. I don't. Well, let me take that back. You take the teams that are qualified based on the automatic bids and how everything works out. I have no problem with what they chose. All right. I have no problem with what they chose. Let's be clear about that. I do think that the fact for the South Carolina fan base, they were that close. This I don't know how close I can show you there. I think that they were that close, and they've never been that close because obviously it's been a 14 playoff. Yes, I do think there was, as you use the word, angst. I think that there was anger, but the truth of the matter to me was you lost to Alabama in a head to head. You lost to Mississippi in a head to head. Neither of those got in, and so we could do an hour long show on how that all kind of played out. But I think the fact that they were that close, and I know a lot of people want to point to the LSU loss and what happened and the foul that was called, the flag that was called on Garrett Nussmeyer, or on Kyle Kennard on Garrett Nussmeyer. I get it. There's a lot there, but Mark, I think it worked out. I'm okay with how things worked out. Now the South Carolina fan base looked at it as, hey, look at what we just did. We have the hottest team in the country. It didn't help the fact that you had the ESPN talking heads constantly saying South Carolina was the hottest team in the country with maybe the best player in Lenora Sellers. I think that hurt. But the truth be, they probably didn't deserve to be in. That's my opinion. Again, I'm not speaking for anybody at my radio station or that I know. That's my opinion. But the bottom line is that they just came up a little bit short. But the fact that they were so close, I think ignites that conversation about how close they were and what they could have been.
So the surface analysis of trying to relate what happened in 2024 to 2025 is that Shane Beamer is a young coach. He's built uh, a good thing going there in South Carolina. I don't want to overplay it. He's 1 year away from 5-7, but the starting quarterback's back, and as I mentioned, a dark horse candidate is a Heisman contender. So the surface thought is that the South Carolina team is kind of a chic pick to do some damage this year. But has Shane Beamer built this program from the inside out and with the stability along the line of scrimmage and everything that's needed in the SEC to be a real factor year in, year out?
Okay. Welcome to the new world of college football. That's a great question. Are we worried about being a factor in the SEC? Or are you asking me about being a factor in the college football playoff? Those are two entirely different things, right? Yes.
Oh, absolutely they are. We just
Okay.
saw Ohio State play, a devastating game against Michigan, and they turned it right around and won a national championship.
So here's where I go with that. The SEC is always going to be very difficult. I think there are this particular year. I think there are flaws. I question the running back position and what they can do there. I think the offensive line, even with the talent they have coming back, has got to take a step forward. I think the defensive line has lost a lot of players. Do they have guys who are ready to take a step forward? Transfers that are ready to produce like they were expected to. So, when you ask that question, I honestly think it is a year to year deal now. Your team, the 2024 team does not stand on merit for the 2025 team. The 2025 team will be separate of 2024 and whatever 2026 could be. So I do think, to answer your question, yes, I do think that they're ready to be that program. But that is based on this year's team, and this year's team has some significant questions as it pertains to, is the offensive line ready to produce? Is the defensive line going to be able to replenish a guy, TJ Sanders, who I don't think is in mock drafts for the first round anymore. Probably the second round. Kyle Kennard, the Butkus Award winner, is the defensive line ready? So I think when you ask that question, it's because I feel like you were asking about completely moving forward into the future and not just about 1 year in time. I think we're talking about 1 year. Is this team ready to replicate what they did in 2024 in 2025?
No, it's a good point because the turnover is so high for everyone. At first, it was just okay. Colorado is going crazy, and there's a few teams here and there that are going crazy, but it's completely out of the coach's hands at this point in regards to, or at least on one side of it, it is in terms of maintaining players, unless you want to spend on your current roster and try to keep guys around. But it is a different state of college football for sure. I think that the question that I asked, you could still put a very few select into having arrived at a place. Not that they can't fall from that pedestal, but Georgia, Ohio State, there's a few, but they're very few.
Well, look at Florida State this year, and look at Florida State in 2023.
Sure.
I mean, that's college athletics. We could do a whole show on this. I think college athletics is a year to year basis now. And so you see Florida State, who I, by the way, think should have been in the playoff. Boy, you want to talk about doing a show. In 2023, I think Florida State should have been in there. They went undefeated in a Power Five conference. But then look at what they did last year. Well, what do we expect Florida State to bounce back and do this year? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that right now. It's only April. South Carolina went from being 8-4 in 2022, playing Notre Dame in a fantastic Gator Bowl, to 5-7 the following year, to 9-3. So what do we expect of this year? Well, I like the team. I like there are some players there that are really, really good, but can the transfers gel? Can everything that you're trying to accomplish gel? I just think it's a year to year basis. Now, there are programs I think are set up to be successful for the long term, but you have that year, and let's see how Florida State does. You have that year where you fall off. South Carolina is one of those programs that's not set up. They can be 10-2 1 year because you get the right mix of transfers. They can be 2-10 the following year because you just completely mess up the transfer portal.
Well, I'm going to back up your analysis. I won't call it a philosophy because it's the truth. It's not a theory because we're seeing it play out and have for the last 4 or 5 years, and it just the numbers are just growing in volume and in the level of players that are entering the transfer portal. But I'll tell you this, Will, that probably 6 or 7 years ago, it kind of dawned on me in looking at all the preseason publications, Street and Smiths, Athlons, et cetera, that these publications were being extremely conservative, predicting the records for these teams. And I was thinking, seems like they're barely any variance from season to season. They're pretty much playing it safe. Now, I don't know if they're doing that because that's a true analysis or they're just trying to not look bad. So what I started doing was started looking at year to year standings and thinking, okay, just looking at the Power Five, how many teams across the country have at least a 3-game win increase or decrease from season to season? And I just picked 3 because it seems significant. If you're 6-6 and you go to 9-3, that's pretty significant. It's typically been 70 Power 4 teams currently, about 20 to 22. Last year it was 29. So more than a third of the Power Conference teams had a big increase or a big decrease. So that speaks to what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't think you can figure it out. I just on our radio show from 6 to 9 in the morning here in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach, 107.5 the game. I think you're judging everything year to year. There's no longer a value of looking at your head coach and saying, well, does he have this recruiting class? Let's give him 3 to 5 years. Oh, he's recruiting really, really well. The transfer portal has changed all of that. And so I think that's what we're doing with football now, or basketball. Basketball, throw baseball in there. I'm watching South Carolina baseball, But I think that's the value. There's no longer a long term project. It's year to year. What are you doing? And then it's an athletic director thinking, okay, does my guy know how to handle this? How is he recruiting? But is he replenishing talent? There's a lot more than it used to be, say, 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
No doubt about that. We got Will Gunter on the line from the early game, 107.5, the game down in Columbia, Myrtle Beach. And I forgot the other one.
Let's see, what did you say? 107.5 the game, 100.3 the game, and 100.5 the game in Florence.
There we go. All right, Will, appreciate you being here. Let's open it up to the SEC. And shoot, based on the last part of this conversation, I don't know that I can ask these questions now. I'll ask it this way. Brian Kelly is now entering a fourth year at LSU, and he's staring at a game in which he'll probably be a very slight underdog, probably a pick 'em type game at Clemson to start at 0-5 in regards to openers during his tenure at LSU. He's not had an awful stay, but he was hired to win championships. So I'm going to go there first in regards to what do you think about this LSU situation and Brian Kelly's job?
All right, well, let me just say this. I think Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, I have a good buddy. My argument is Brian Kelly is one of the best coaches in college football. I thought he was. I think he is. I think he is wildly underachieved at LSU. And I think this is a massive year for him. And, like if he goes 8-4, do I think he should get fired? No, but I don't think he should go 8-4. He's got Garrett Nussmeier coming back. Nussmeier is a big time quarterback. He would have been drafted this year, not very highly, but he would have been drafted. Um, Brian Kelly is a guy that look, they paid a lot of money for, because I think they think, follow me on that, the same way I do. He's one of the top 5 coaches in college football, but he hasn't produced that way. He's got talent. They won the transfer portal. This is a huge year. And South Carolina goes down there early in the season. I think it's the first week in October or one of the September weekends. I forget right now. But the bottom line is Brian Kelly has to produce 8-4 this year. They'll keep him, I assume. It's not cutting it. That's very bad, and he shouldn't have that kind of season.
You would think that the bar at LSU with this 12-team playoff would be to make it most of the time, almost all the time.
Right. Yeah, no, 12-team play. We're all still recalibrating what we think. I think for any program, and that's why I told you earlier. With South Carolina, uh, they were never close to a 14 playoff. They really were never close. With a 12-team playoff, and now you get it where I don't think they deserve to be in, but that's me. A 12-team playoff, you're looking at it, and you're like, boy, we were so close. We were this close, and so I love it. I love the 12-team playoff. But you're right about that. LSU should be in contention each and every year to be in there.
So with the two new teams that came into the SEC, it's kind of ironic that it flipped right before they entered the SEC. You had Oklahoma largely dominating the Big 12, and you had Texas on a 15-year run in which they were largely the biggest disappointment in college football. Well, Sark comes in, has one down year, builds, and leads into the playoffs the year before they go into the SEC. Oklahoma's on the downturn now. The SEC, by the way, gave Oklahoma probably the toughest schedule in the conference, and gave Texas the easiest one, ironically. And I did the whole breakdown of that, and you're nodding your head because you know as well as I do that's what happened. And again, another throwing out my quote of ironicallys to throw on top of that, of course, because the way they set this up, everybody's playing the same teams this year, just flipping home and road. So what do you think about, we anticipated this for a few years once it was announced, Oklahoma and Texas coming from the Big 12. Are they going to get their brains beat in? Are they going to compete? It's only one season, but how did that play out for you?
Well, I think the schedule mattered. I think that was big. I think Brent Venables, I don't know if you can be a defensive guy in this league. You look at Will Muschamp, who was at Florida and obviously at South Carolina. I don't know. It seems like these defensive minded guys don't succeed in the SEC. I guess Kirby Smart has, but even they're complaining about the offense. You know, if you followed it, they're complaining about Mike Bobo. Steve Sarkisian is an offensive guy. Um, Kalen DeBoer, even at Alabama, on the cusp of getting into the college football playoff, an offensive guy. Missouri and Eli Drinkowitz. I know they didn't get to the playoff, but an offensive guy. Lane Kiffin, offensive guy. I think it's an interesting league from that standpoint. Go through all the head coaches. We won't do it right now, but I think that's the thing that stands out to me is that when you ask about Texas and Oklahoma, Oklahoma hired a defensive guy and Brent Venables. Texas hired an offensive guy in Steve Sarkisian, and he seems to have them on the right track. Whereas Oklahoma, I don't know. John Mateer this year, he's coming in from Washington State. Is he the answer at quarterback? You know, I don't know. I don't know. Are they too focused on defense as opposed to offense in this league? That's a great question that I'm really interested to see. But I just think about that, Mark. You had Texas hire an offensive guy. You had Oklahoma hire a defensive guy. And let's look at year one. Year one results. I do think what you said. The schedule is that's got to be accounted for.
And in addition to that, this is just throwing stuff at the wall, but this is a bit of a theory to extend on what you're talking about. You hire an offensive guy, and he is more apt to, and I think we could go across the country with the Ryan Days and the Lincoln Rileys of the world and others that you just mentioned to say, okay, I'm going to hire a defensive genius and just let him take that because I'm not going to meddle with that. Go to it, hire the best D coordinator I possibly can. Where if you hire a defensive minded guy as a head coach, I think he tends to say, I want the offense to kind of complement us, and I don't want them to get too crazy. Keep it in check. Let's play in a phone booth and let my defense win the game.
I think you're 100% correct. I think you're 100% correct. I've discussed this. A defensive minded guy wants he wants to keep it low scoring. So okay, I'll hire an offensive coordinator. An offensive guy is like, all right, just please get 2 or 3 stops, 4 stops per game. We'll win the ball game. I don't care what it takes. It's interesting here because Shane Beamer is neither an offensive and or defensive guy, right? He's neither offensive defensive. But Clark Lee at Vanderbilt is defensive. Let's go around the league. Texas A&M and Mike Elko is defensive. Oklahoma and Brent Venables is defensive. But you go to Mississippi, you go to Florida, you go to Alabama. You got offensive guys. Georgia is a defensive team, but Georgia is going to recruit the way they recruit. I think that's an interesting study that we need to watch over the next few years as this league develops and evolves with what they're trying to do offensively and defensively.
The one hire I like out of all of that is that I'm a big Mike Elko fan.
I am too. Yes. Yes, I agree with you.
There are exceptions, of course. Got Will Gunter here from the early game. It's on 107.5 at the game there in Columbia, South Carolina, and also in Myrtle Beach and in
Florence. Florence.
Florence.
But you know what? We got an app. You can listen to us anywhere. You can listen to us anywhere. You can download 1075 The Game app. Wherever you're watching or listening today, you can download us and listen to what we talk about. We've been cutting up about a lot of stuff, by the way.
Well, Will, we appreciate you being here. I don't want to take up your entire afternoon, but thanks for stopping by, and hopefully we'll get you back on here soon.
You and I connect. I've had a son in AAU basketball, and normally my afternoons are booked. We happen to have an open afternoon today. I love being on with you. I appreciate everything you do, man. You do a phenomenal job, and I'm glad to be on with you today. I just apologize. I'm going through those ages, 15 and 12. You know what it's like,
I
cheerleading and
know.
basketball, and I'm proud of both of my kids, and they do a phenomenal
Absolutely.
job. But yeah, not always convenient, but today was great, and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Will, you are one of the originals. Will, if we went back to our original guests, Will would pop up, I don't know, second, seventh, something in the top 10, I'm
I
sure.
I appreciate that, and Lauren appreciates that, and she's a good girl, and I appreciate what you're saying, and she thinks highly of you, and so I thank you for that.
Thank you, Will. It's great to see you. Keep up the good work down there.
Thank you, man. Y'all
We'll
take
be
care.
calling you. We'll
All
see
right,
you.
take care. All right.
Will Gunter, great guy. There you see it. 107.5 The Game. And again, just get the app. It's the early game. So just look that up, the early game, and you get Will's Twitter/X handle right there, South Carolina football. He loves the SEC, loves college football. I tried to pin him down to the SEC in South Carolina, and he's like, let's talk college football. Because I'm sure he gets inundated with South Carolina every day. Okay, looks like Minnie's arguing with us. All right. We will not necessarily get into that. Minnie did bring up Chip Kelly. That needs some explanation. That needs a little explanation. Basically, what happened at Ohio State with Chip Kelly and Ryan Day was Ryan Day's an offensive guy. I would argue one of the best play callers and offensive minds in college football. Okay. These responsibilities and the plate has been loaded for the college football coach in recent years with NIL and the transfer portal in particular. So the Ohio State athletic department, Gene Smith in particular is the AD, and others have put a lot of pressure on Ryan Day to give up the offense. And he held on to it and held on to it and held on to it. And somebody finally convinced him that this is the best way to go. Hire an offensive coordinator. You cannot be everything that you need to be as the head coach, as the CEO of this football program, as a play caller. You're an offensive coordinator and you're trying to run an entire football operation as well. That's arguably the largest one in college football. So he finally relented and he went with a guy that he's super, super comfortable with because that is his mentor, Chip Kelly, going back to his playing days, Ryan Day at the University of New Hampshire. So they brought in somebody that he was extremely comfortable with in Chip Kelly. And that was a great transition for Ryan Day to be able to hand over the offense, still be involved, and then really get involved more with defense and special teams. And way beyond that, the management, the CEO portion of the job. So that could not have worked out any better for Ohio State, even though their original selection was Bill O'Brien, who then left after about 3 weeks to go to Boston College to be the head coach. That Chip Kelly no longer wanted to mess with all the things that Ryan Day had to then focus on, NIL, transfer portal, and being a CEO, being a talking piece, being the figurehead of the program. And I don't say that in a derogatory way that he's not running the program, but he's got to go through all the speaking engagements and all of that. Well, Chip Kelly wanted no part of that anymore. He just wanted to coach players and schemes and call plays. And again, so it worked out, as we saw in 2024, about as well as it could have possibly went down. Yeah, I got tired of recruiting. Chip Kelly never liked recruiting, hated recruiting. Even when there was no transfer portal, he did not like to recruit. Did less recruiting and took less recruiting trips than just about anybody. All right. We're going to leave the call-in line in the chat again. We've got a nice show lined up for tomorrow with Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On Ducks to talk some Oregon football with us in particular. And if you didn't see this, this is coming to mind as I am awaiting a call from someone out there. Let me do this. Let's see if this translates, if you can hear this. Let me pull up my Twitter here. I do not in any way encourage anyone to pick up Twitter if you're not on Twitter. It's an unsavory place at times. But if you're already on Twitter, then of course follow me on Twitter. And after yesterday's show, I just could not help myself. Normal callers, Are there any out there? Normal callers! Normal callers! Normal callers. Are there any out there? Normal callers! Normal callers! Normal callers. Yeah. That's enough, Mark. Okay. So if you didn't get that, I'm looking for some normal callers. So we've had a rash of slightly off the rails callers. So we are looking for some more normal callers. Yes. If you didn't get that. Absolutely. Okay. I would like to carve up some schedules. If we're just going to hang out here, why don't we do that? And the Alabama Crimson. Oh, this is what I was doing earlier today. I'm going to spoil the surprise, but I'll just let you know there. So looking up the Alabama schedule, of course, is giving indication as to what I was doing at one point this morning. Is I spent about 20 or 30 minutes looking for, what was I looking for there? Can anybody identify what in the world I was looking for there? I was trying to get myself a Coastal Carolina shirt. I want to get myself a Coastal Carolina shirt, but I want a teal one. I don't want a black one because I'll probably wear it 50 times before anyone gets the point. Nobody will look at what's written on the shirt, although I never wear shirts with writing on them on the air. And I didn't want a white one. I was looking for a teal Coastal Carolina. You would think that that would be the easiest thing to look up. Teal Coastal Carolina t-shirt, go to Amazon, go to Fanatics, go to wherever and get my shirt. Couldn't find one. I need a large Coastal Carolina t-shirt, teal. I want it to stand out. Trying to make a statement. I love what Coastal Carolina did with his free concession stand. Well, I guess it's a stand of free concessions. I didn't mean to say it that way. So anyway, there they are. I tried Amazon. Coastal Carolina gives a damn. I don't know why they're doing this either. As Jackson helped us determine yesterday, they averaged over 400 more fans than capacity last year, meaning they sold out every game. I thought maybe they were doing this to get more people into the stadium. I love it. I love it. This is my team this year, Coastal Carolina. I want them to go 12-0 this year. Let's move on to the Alabama schedule. They're going to play some semblance of a spring game on April 12th. We don't know what that's going to look like. Alabama at Florida State. Alabama sure better win that game or Kalen DeBoer is going to be feeling some heat. Not that he's going to lose his job, but I do credit Alabama with scheduling two difficult opponents. And when I say difficult, take it into context. I'm not saying that Wisconsin's a good football team, but when you schedule Wisconsin, you know that you are scheduling potentially a good football team. Although I do think that Wisconsin's in for a rough year. But playing Florida State on the road and coming back 2 weeks later to play Wisconsin, I don't want to hear anybody complaining about Alabama's schedule this year. I know that they've got the free game near the end of the season. There it is, Eastern Illinois. That's the tune-up, the warm-up for Auburn on November 22nd, but that's just the way they play it in the SEC. And until somebody holds them accountable and makes them change their scheduling process and their approach, that's what they're going to do in the SEC, is they're going to give their teams, many of their teams, a week off to prepare for the last weekend of the season. And whether that keeps that particular team more fresh for the playoffs, I cannot argue that. I don't think it can be argued one way or the other. But I specifically wanted to look at these SEC schedules in terms of non-conference play. So Alabama gets a big thumbs up from me for scheduling Florida State and Wisconsin. Georgia. All right. Georgia. They have themselves their spring game on the same day, April 12th. Okay, so they play Marshall's actually a decent group of 5 team, but still nothing there. Austin P. We know that they're going to play Georgia Tech, and they also play Charlotte. All right, I'm going to give Georgia a bit of a break here because they did schedule Clemson last year. They have scheduled Oregon in recent years, I believe in 2021, 2022. So Georgia's schedule is difficult outside of conference games, but this year it's just Georgia Tech. And that game, I believe, is going to be at home. No, that's on the road at Georgia Tech. The other 3 are gimmies. So not as difficult as Alabama. Now, Tennessee, they played North Carolina State last year and just drubbed them 51-10. And man, I guess I'm going to be busy on April 12th. We've got Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama with spring games, so I'm going to have to show up for that. Syracuse is week 1 in Atlanta. So we got the ACC and the SEC getting together in Atlanta, as they always do. Last year was Georgia and Clemson. This year we got Syracuse and Tennessee. The last time those 2 got together was back in that was back in 1998. They played in 1998, and Syracuse probably should have won the game, and there was a late pass interference call. And why was that significant? Well, it helped Tennessee win the game by 1 point, and they went on to win the national championship. Probably would not have had that opportunity. So Tennessee's got Syracuse, East Tennessee State, UAB, and they don't have, yes, they do, a bit of a warm-up there with New Mexico State. So Tennessee's schedule weak, non-conference. I do not expect Syracuse to be what they were last year with Kyle McCord at quarterback. How about Mississippi State? They just need to play anybody with a pulse just to try to get some wins after 2-10 last year. Southern Miss on the road. Now, Southern Miss might have been the worst football team in America at 1-11 and did not defeat a team in the FBS. But anytime you mention somebody might be the worst team in America and it's not Kent State, well, it basically means that they're the worst team in America, not named Kent State. Mississippi State welcomes Arizona State, of course, coming off the college football playoff appearance in the Big 12 championship. Alcorn State, home of the late, great Steve McNair. Northern Illinois. And the other game is that 4? Southern Miss, Arizona State, Alcorn State, and Northern Illinois. Okay, that's fairly legit. Texas A&M. They go to South Bend, don't they? Yes, they go to South Bend. And for Notre Dame, this is just going to be 2 weeks after they play at Miami. So a couple warm-ups against some capable teams, actually, against Texas, San Antonio, and Utah State from Mike Elko's crew. Then they go to Notre Dame to try to avenge that opening game loss to the Irish last year, 23-13. Game was tied with about 5 minutes left in the game, and Notre Dame put together 2 nice drives to win it going away. So those are the 3 non-conference games. And then the one late in the season is against Samford. So the one big opponent for Texas A&M. What about Texas? Well, they start off going to Columbus to take on Ohio State, the defending national champions, in whom they lost to in the national semifinal. San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston. But you put Ohio State on your schedule, you can schedule high school teams past that, and it's going to be respectable. How about Florida? We know they've got Miami for a second consecutive year, looking to make amends for a drubbing that they took in the Swamp. But before that game, they've got somebody called Long Island University. They've got South Florida. That's not going to be necessarily an easy game. Then they step into the SEC with LSU on the road before they play Miami. And then, of course, they've got Florida State. So for Florida, give them a ton of credit for playing both Miami and Florida State. That's how I think most of us would like it. Kentucky, never, I mean never plays anyone. And there it is. Toledo, Eastern Michigan. Wait a minute. I missed somebody. There it is. Tennessee Tech. And then they got to play Louisville. That's a set rivalry. So other than playing Louisville, which of course they're basically expected, forced to play, Tennessee Tech, Toledo, and Eastern Michigan. So Kentucky football fans never get to see anybody play. They never get to see any quality non-conference game. Ole Miss, they played no one last year. Their out-of-conference schedule was horrific. They played Wake. Georgia State, Tulane, somewhat respectable if they're playing somebody else. So this is odd because they're not necessarily playing somebody else, but they're playing Washington State. Georgia State, Tulane, Washington State, and the Citadel. I guess they're technically playing one power conference opponent. Arkansas. Arkansas has a game against Memphis. They've got Arkansas State. They got Alabama A&M. And that's right. They've got Notre Dame. Okay. Give it up for Arkansas. Playing Notre Dame and also scheduling Memphis on the road at the Liberty Bowl. That's a quality non-conference schedule. Auburn. They're playing like Baylor. There it is. At Baylor. Okay. Ball State, South Alabama. And then they've got the freebie before the Alabama game. That's against Mercer. It's okay. They scheduled Baylor. Oklahoma's got a date against Michigan, of course. That's at home in week 2 after playing Illinois State. They're calling their spring game the Crimson Combine. Okay, don't know that that's necessary. Illinois State, Michigan, at Temple. And then they picked up a cream puff near the end of the year, I'm sure. Kent State, my beloved Golden Flashes, but that is a October 4th game. Okay. Who have we not seen? South Carolina. Of course, they play Clemson at the end. Did they schedule anyone else? Last year, they did. Wait a minute. Last year, they did not. But at various times, they've scheduled UCF, North Carolina, and some others. No, they do play Virginia Tech. So for South Carolina, it's Virginia Tech and Clemson. Okay. Let's see if the ACC can show up and actually win some of these games. I don't know where that stood in terms of the ACC and the SEC last year, but the ACC had a horrific non-conference record. All right, I like that. South Carolina playing Virginia Tech to open the season on that Saturday night against, and that's in Atlanta as well. So we've got a Saturday, Sunday ACC SEC duel in Atlanta. South Carolina State, Coastal Carolina, my favorite team. They're playing South Carolina. So that's a nice schedule right there. South Carolina is challenging themselves with Virginia Tech, Clemson, of course, and they're also playing Coastal Carolina, a respectable team. I like that. Vandy played Virginia Tech last year. They're playing Virginia Tech again this year. Of course, they pulled off a big upset in week 1 that let us know that Vandy was going to field a football team last year. This time they go on the road, though, in week 2 after the Charleston Southern game to Blacksburg, Georgia State, whom they lost to, and Utah State. It's Vandy. Okay, at least they scheduled somebody. There are Vandy schedules in the past where they have scheduled no one. Missouri, I don't know who they played non-conference last year. They took on Boston College. This year they've got Kansas, Louisiana, Central Arkansas to start. Central Arkansas, then Kansas, then the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana, and then UMass. Okay, Eli Drinkwitz, no. Don't like this schedule. Kansas, fine. Schedule somebody else. And we looked at just about everyone else, I believe. So that's our march around the SEC in terms of non-conference scheduling. We are sharing locales. Edward almost moved to Arizona in his 20s, still in Florida. Maybe a neighbor of mine. Todd's in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I'm in Georgetown, south of Myrtle. Okay. Sharing vacation plans. Very nice. Whoa. Bank of America owes me something. Just plagued George with a commercial right in the middle of the live stream. I don't have to deal with what a lot of you have to deal with because it is so worth it to me to pay for the YouTube premium every month. So I have not seen it. And that's probably not a good thing because we have to do a better job probably of positioning these commercials. But basically, YouTube does whatever it wants with these commercials. But we've got a slight say, a lot less than we used to because they came up with a new rule or guideline just a couple months ago about positioning commercials, because I know that can be a pain. And I guess that's it for the vacation plans and the identifying where everyone lives. David heard somebody comp Kyle McCord and Brock Purdy. Well, Kyle McCord's going to be drafted a lot higher than Brock Purdy, right? I would think, if you're going to make that comp about where they stood as seniors in college going into the draft. I'm not going to predict that Kyle McCord's going to have the success that Brock Purdy's had. Well, Minnie, that's what we do want. We want uniformity across college football, and we don't want these SEC teams. And I'm not saying that the SEC is not the best conference. Sometimes SEC fans confuse arguing equity and fairness versus saying that they're not the best conference. Those are two different things. But when you're scheduling a high school team, the second to last game of the season, that can impact the injuries and how worn down your team is going into the playoffs and playing a playoff game just 3 weeks later, 3 to 4 weeks later. None of this is going to get accomplished, I don't believe. I don't see it happening until there is actually a commissioner of college football or a governing body that rules the sport, because these conferences are going to do what they want to do, and they should. Oh, vacations. That's a great question. That is a great question. Because when I think about vacations, I've got one buddy who just got back with one of my best friends, Mike. He just got back from a cruise with his wife. And then you've got my buddy Steve, who actually right now is on the other coast across from me in Sarasota with his wife vacationing. And then my buddy down the street, he's only like 10 minutes away. And one of the big reasons why I moved here, he goes on a vacation with his wife like every other weekend. They've been on like 3 cruises this year and been to Vegas a couple times. I don't have anybody to go on vacation with. Everybody I would be going on vacation with, they have spouses, so they don't want to go on vacation with me. And to their credit, it's very kind of them. My buddy Keith and his wife in particular, they invite me on their vacations, many of them. And I'm like, no, thank you. Don't think you want to, like, yeah, don't want that. But yeah, I've not truly been on a vacation, a real vacation, since the last time I had someone to take a vacation with, had a significant other. And that's been over 4 years ago. So that's the last time. So I have no vacation plans except for, I don't know if this is going to come through, but my other best friend, or out of my 4 best friends, I'll put it that way. I don't know if this is going to happen, but he invited me to go to the NFL draft. You want to consider that a vacation? It's in Green Bay. It's in 3 to 4 weeks. And he's a pilot, so he has flown me around before. Oh, do we have a birthday? We do have a birthday. I would sing happy birthday, but I'm not much of a singer. Maybe if we all sing together, it'll drown me out. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Karen. Happy birthday to you. And now I've lost my audience. That's the best I could do. George, when is your birthday? Oh, no. George will go on vacation with me virtually. You go, I'll stay home. Yeah, I don't go on vacations by myself. No, I did go on 2 trips this past fall, but those were more like visiting family. Do those count as vacations? I don't think so. It's funny you bring that up, because I just told my friend just the other night when we were talking about all this stuff, I said, it's my goal to take a vacation by the end of the year, or maybe at the beginning of 2026. The last time I took a vacation, I came down close to where I am now. I went to, we spent half the time in Vero Beach at a Disney resort, and the other half we spent at Disney. That's the last vacation I've been on. Real vacation. Exquisite. Not bad. So beautiful. All right, David. I didn't need to come up on your comment. You ruined it. Perry Como mixed with Dean Martin, which I wouldn't necessarily be able to figure out the mixture there. I think Dean Martin can sing, actually. Not that I'm sitting around listening to Dean Martin, but the deal was, well, I wouldn't want to really explain our vacation, but the only time I really went to Disney, because yeah, we really didn't go to Disney. Again, there's some context there, but I could stay at Disney for like a third of the price and get in for free and all that other business. So really the only time I've actually truly taken a Disney vacation was when my kids were 8 and 6, 10 and 8, something like that. I took them to Disney and met my sister and my mom. We had a nice little time. Weather was perfect. It was in the middle of February. That's really the only time I've been to Disney for like a week to do the kids thing with my kids. It was great. Yeah, the other time was more of an adult, like Vero Beach. Then we just came up to Disney for like the last day and a half. Yeah, didn't even really go into the park, kind of thing. So yeah, I am okay with not seeing any more Disney. Now, I did not see Epcot Center that I remember, even though I was there for a week. But yeah, I kind of screwed that up because I can no longer, get into Disney for free. All right, Troy. Next time, if somebody is going to appreciate my singing, then I will have to, set up like a video call to sing directly to them, to not subject all of you to my singing. All right. Top 10 universities based on vacation spots. Coastal Carolina, Myrtle Beach. Miami, Coral Gables. Close enough to Key West, I guess. Miami. Tulane, New Orleans. Do we consider Stanford being in San Francisco? Not really. I don't know. I've run out. When I think of vacation, okay, well, throw the University of Colorado, or pardon me, Colorado University in Boulder. I would say that if you combine the sunshine and the mountains and everything involved, that Colorado might be the prettiest state in the country. I used to think it was California, but I haven't been there in a while. I haven't been to California in about over 10 years. I hear it's a mess. Pepperdine, that's a good call if we're going to delve into basketball in Malibu. Yeah, it's a good call. BYU? Yeah, I guess so. Provo, Utah. I've never been to Utah. I've driven through Utah. One night I drove with a girlfriend, we were supposed to safely arrive in Denver, like comfortably arrive in Denver for a flight, but then we decided to stay in Vegas one more night, and then we had to drive 16 hours straight from Vegas to Denver. And I think that's the only time I've been. A couple times I drove from Vegas to Denver, had to drive through Utah, but I've never spent time in Utah. The Rose Bowl, sure. But is that a vacation place? Minnie, you risk bringing certain people out when you just throw out years and certain universities. Freddie Fender. How many people out there even know who Freddie Fender is? Boulder is beautiful. I have not been to Colorado since 2017-ish, 18. Yeah. We shouldn't bring up all this stuff because it brings up it conjures up memories of old girlfriends is all this does. All right, folks. We do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. And I didn't think we would get too many people in the chat that would even know who Freddie Fender is. Dave does as well. Okay. All right. We've got a 7 p.m. show. UCF's in Orlando. True. And Hawaii's the obvious choice for vacation spots for college universities. 7 o'clock Eastern is our Miami show. I'm on with Cam Underwood from State of the U, as David Greenshield would say, one of our 37 Miami shows that we do every week. It's actually one Miami show. We counted our shows at the Voice of College Football this week. We counted, and as soon as we get a few other people onboarded that are going to do USC, Florida State, and a few other teams, we're going to have 43 shows, 43 weekly shows. So you won't have to see me too often. I'm down from 17. I think last summer I hit a peak of 17 shows I was hosting every week. I think we're down to these 5 every week. And then we're going to do this call-in show once a week. And I got the Iowa show, and I got the Ohio State show, and the Miami show. And we're going to get USC cranked up here pretty soon, whether I am involved in that or not. Yes, I used to do much, much more. Oh, I think David says this because it annoys me. I am no longer nowhere close to the hardest working man on YouTube. Maybe I was at one point for a long time, but no longer do I want that. Do we post the schedules? Yes, we do. So what we do is it is posted to the main channel every day if I remember to do it. There are only 10 people watching on YouTube. Good Lord, what's going on? Because this shows me 86. Twitter, Facebook. Jeez, what a sad state of affairs. Okay, so let me find, we post. Seems like everybody that is watching is commenting. So let's see here. We post the schedule every day on the main channel. Like, voila. So there's the big Wednesday schedule right there. Ohio State Buckeyes live at 11 a.m. Eastern time this morning on the Buckeyes channel, the Ole Miss Rebels live show on the Ole Miss channel. Here we are with the college football show. Miami live with me at 7 o'clock. And then these other shows I'm not involved in, but we got the Mountaineer Locker Room show. We got the All In Clemson Tigers live show. We got Illinois Fighting Illini live. You're not a true college football network without a Fighting Illini show. You just can't be. Brett Bielema needs to be talked about. George, there will be other days, other times, other days. And speaking of weather, speaking of nice locales. I'm going to go enjoy some 82 degrees and sunny right now. And you will see me in an hour and 41 minutes over on the Miami show. Karen, once again, happy birthday. That is phenomenal. I thought I was clicking on Karen. That's Minnie. But anyway, it's Karen's birthday. I'm sure Minnie has a birthday at some point as well, as do all of us. Okay. See you tonight at 7. Thanks for being here.